Well, what's going on, man? Back for another one of these?
Yeah. Well, sounds like you had a pretty big week. I guess we can't talk about it too much, but some pretty exciting stuff on your end.
Yeah, no, we can't even hint at it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a bummer, but I hope that all gets worked out for the best.
Oh, it should be fine.
Yeah.
We'll see.
On my side, well, it looks like my new ETA for getting my kitchen and all licensing done is probably sometime in 2028.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, apparently complete has a different definition when you're dealing with contractors. Apparently that just means whatever we decided we wanted to do that day, we completed it, but your project, don't know.
Nothing's complete until the government authorities come in and put your rubber stamp on there and say you're good to operate.
Yeah, but with these contractors, I can't even get to the point where the authorities are going to come and stamp it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is a tough one. And, I think this was a good lesson for us, is that we should have just hired a actual restaurant consultant to make sure everything went smooth to get done, or a contractor or whatever. We tried to piecemeal it out ourselves, thinking we knew enough, and we do know a lot, but still we didn't know enough about all this.
I guess, I suppose at the end of it, if I'd have just hired somebody for $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever, and it would have saved a lot of heartache and trouble and
maybe not even necessarily money, just trouble and headache.
Yeah, it's just, you go on these city websites, you think it's fairly easy and fairly straightforward, and it's not. And every little thing you do seems to trigger something else,
And every inspector has their own interpretation sometimes.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
That truly is the crazy part. I went through this with customs once.
Right.
Where I literally appealed it as high as I could appeal it without going to actual court.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very top of customs, it came back down and they said every individual customs officer has full discretion on how to classify goods coming in.
That's wild.
So, I don't know how true that can possibly be. Like, can they classify a car as a chicken?
Maybe that was just a cover their ass statement
but
there.
I'm sure within certain parameters, but just that you can't even get it reviewed. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com. Well, this week, our episode is talking about succession planning and how to transition your business when it's time to wrap up. The big news in this kind of week's media is that longtime CEO Bob Iger is stepping down as the CEO of Disney, which is kind of crazy. He had a long run since 2005, which does not seem like that long ago, to be honest with you. 2005 seems like last week, but apparently that was 21 years ago.
Now, wasn't he like the CEO before, and then he left and then he came back?
I believe that's correct, yeah. But since 2005, we got Pixar, he acquired Marvel, bought the Lucasfilm, so he really solidified Disney as one of the biggest media empires.
ABC, right?
Yeah.
All that they own. Yeah.
And I guess the guy, Josh, and I'm going to butcher the last name, but I think it's DeMauro, something like that. Some Italian name, I think. Hopefully he's
DeMauro.
But anyway, he ran Disney Parks, proven operator with deep internal knowledge. He's stepping up to the plate and taking over as CEO for Disney as a whole.
Well, he definitely got a lot of profit on me on insanely expensive stuff at Disney.
Yeah, did you just blow the bankroll at Disney?
Oh yeah, we went to Disney and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to penny pinch here.
Just have some fun.
Internally, I was just like, I'm in the wrong business. Like every 2 seconds, I turned around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'll do
it. But I think we spent $4,000 on just stuff.
I'm a fan of some of the Disney stuff. Like I like Marvel and Star Wars. I'm a nerd a little bit, but I do not get some of the crazy fandom about Disney. Like there's Disney people who spend tens of thousands of dollars a year going to the parks and the cruises and I mean, it's cool, but
Well,
good
one
Lord.
of our friends
It's like a
is
little
one of
cult.
those people.
Yeah.
And she collects everything Disney. I mean, she knows everything about it. She's got the super VIP pass and everything.
Really?
And we got in on her pass,
Yeah.
skip the line type of deal.
I've heard there's isn't there like a special club too, like only for billionaires in Disney?
Maybe, probably.
Some like secret, I think it's like Club 33 or some like secret society deal.
Can you imagine though having so much money that you could rent out a whole park?
Oh my God.
Like I think
yeah,
a
you hear
lot of us
stories about
have
that.
fantasized about that and stuff like that, and we see in movies how they rent out a whole amusement park.
Right.
But who could rent out like a whole Disney park?
That's wild. Imagine being the guy who showed up that day with like his kid after saving up all the money for like, a few years of working, and you show up and it's just, we're closed today. Some rich guy rented it out.
And the rich guy goes, "You're my guest today."
Yeah, that'd be nice. There you go. That's a movie. That's a movie
Yeah.
right there. Yeah, there you go. Disney. If they make that, we better get a cut.
I'll bet you somebody has pitched, like to Disney, like renting out the whole park. Just to
I
billionaires.
bet some people have successfully done it with enough money.
Wow, we should look that up sometimes. All
Yeah.
right, but anyway, back to this. So ownership succession we're talking about is
Correct.
basically we hear about this all the time in the corporate world. We hear about these shakeups. It's always in the news and everything.
Yeah.
Less reported, even locally, actually, is successions in local businesses, local corporations, and obviously not small businesses. Now, once in a while, I will see a story about a small business, and it'll say, so and so, Jan and Charles, are retiring after 39 years, doing the Sweets Flower Shop or something, and their son or their daughter is going to take it over or whatever, right?
Right.
Sometimes you'll see a little kind of a feel good story about that. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever really talks about what business succession is like for small businesses.
Well, a lot of businesses, they just don't plan ahead for their exit strategy. And it's just because it's not a thought at the time when you're getting going. You just want to get going and start making money, and you don't think about the end goal. So there is kind of 3 layers of succession that we talk about when we're doing any kind of succession planning. And that's leadership, operational, and then ownership. So leadership would be, who's driving the ship. Operational will be, who's making sure the ship's running smoothly. And ownership is then who gets paid. So you kind of have to think of all 3 of these type of layers when you are thinking about transitioning the business, because those might not all be the same person. You might have different people owning it, and different people leading. Disney is going to be pretty easy in their transition. Not easy. I mean, obviously any change is dramatic, but they're only having to change their leadership. Their operations are still maintaining the same. Their ownership structure is pretty much remaining the same. Shareholders. Yeah. So really it's just the leadership. But when a small business has to do it, all 3 of these things are changing at once, and it can really cause a lot of chaos. So a lot of small businesses, they need to take a 2-week test. And I've done this before, and you went to Paris recently, didn't you? Mm-hmm. So a 2-week test is, if you're the owner of a business, just take a 2-week vacation. Take a 2-week vacation and don't communicate with your employees.
See, when we went to Paris, though, and every trip we've ever taken, we still work.
Yeah.
And Lulu especially, because she's, she's a real linchpin in our business, which, we'll talk about here in a minute as far as who are the linchpins.
Well, so that raises a question then. Do you think you have a business, or do you have a job with employees?
Well, I think in the sense that we are still needed, or Lulu is still needed, I could disappear and I think it would be fine.
Yeah.
At this point,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they just wouldn't have the benefit of whatever ideas I come up with.
Yeah.
Which don't get made now anyway because we have so many orders.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. But I could disappear. So as the founder of the company, I could disappear at this point and the business would still keep going.
Right.
If my wife were not there, then we would have a real problem.
Well, and it took me 10 years of building my business where I could take a week or 2 vacation and not everything just fall apart. And right now we can't do it because one of our employees is out of the office, a real key employee. She's gone for a couple weeks, and I left yesterday, and there's just stacks of stuff that I missed. For 12 hours I was gone, and we're already behind. And so if you as a business owner can't do this 2-week test. If you can't take a 2-week vacation and your business doesn't have huge slumps, you are not in any way ready to transition. You can't even be thinking about it. And so that needs to be a thought in your mind, is how can I get this business set up where I can leave and it still runs smoothly?
Right. I mean, people have often said, one of the things you hear as a business adage is don't buy yourself a job.
Right. Yep.
Because when you start a business and you're the primary worker in that job, so not only are you the most important employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're never going to get paid what is commensurate with your responsibilities in that sense, because without you, the business, you might make a lot of money when you're there.
Right.
Often not when you're starting a business, or, even when you're years into it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to leave, everything crashes, then what's the point in that?
Right. Right. And the most common bottlenecks that owners of businesses face are pricing, customer relationships, vendor relationships, approvals, problem solving, and then cash decisions. And these things all create bottlenecks at the owner. The owner has to make these decisions for everything else to work well. And so if you're not around, these decisions can't get made. Your business can't continue without you. So it's a real disaster. There are 5 common ways that owners transition. So the first would be to sell to a third party. A fair price to get for your business. It would require reliable financials, transferable customer relationships, and transferable operations. Now, my business is not sellable because I cannot transfer customer relationships. I have good, reliable financials and I have fine operational management, but that customer relationships, people hire me to do their taxes. They don't hire my firm yet.
You'd have to bring somebody in who you could get these customers acquainted with, and
exactly.
Who would be trusted like you're trusted.
Well, I'd have to bring in several people, and then right now my company has
no
a good
ego there.
Well, my company right now I have a good reputation for doing good tax work and good bookkeeping and payroll and all that. But my firm itself doesn't. It's all just, hey, Scott owns that company.
Right.
But eventually, as we grow, I can make it so that the firm has better relationships. You have transferable customer relationships. You have good, reliable financials, but you would struggle a little bit to transfer all your operations.
The logistics, right?
Yeah.
Would suffer. Yeah.
Right. And so if you can't have those 3 things in place, then it's very difficult to sell. And so that's one of the things you need to look at in that regards. Buyers are paying for the systems and the cash flow. They don't care about really the company's story or your effort or anything like that. And so the business that you can hand them, often we hear that term turnkey business. That's what you need to get if you want to try to sell to a third party.
That's like what when somebody's going to sell a car and they find out that all those expensive add-ons they put on don't matter.
Right. Yep. That's exactly it.
Nobody does care really about your story unless they can continue to use your story to market the business, you know. And very often you see when somebody transfers a business or buys a business, the founder kind of gets erased.
Right. Right.
So
another more common way that small businesses handle transition is to sell internally. So you have a key employee, your managers, they buy you out. That is an easier way to transfer the customer relationships and the operational relationships. And so it's often a smoother transition, and it does require training some people in what you do as the founder, but usually that's a much easier method than a third-party sell.
Yeah.
The next one is a family transfer, which has all of its own problems, but you have to really create a good plan to not poison relationships, especially if you have multiple children or multiple family members that you're trying to pass it on. I have seen that turn into a disaster more than once.
Yeah, I have a story for everything for that, things like this, but one of them is in China. I deal with a company that makes pool cues, and the foreman of the factory tells the owner in Taiwan, he says, "Hey, these machines we have, are really old. They don't work anymore, And so the owner is like, okay, well, do the motors work, right?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, yeah, the motors work. And he goes, well, pull the motors and then sell the other, sell the machines for scrap, right? And So the guy turns around and he sells all the machines, right, including the motors. Forgets to pull the motors.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, a new Q factory opens up down the road, and the owner of the Q factory is the other owner's brother, with all those machines that they just sold for cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turned out that the brother had been embezzling money, so I guess that was where the funds came from.
Money does crazy things to
Isn't it
people,
though?
especially in family.
You hear so many things. I bought some sauces from this company, and their story is 15 years ago we started this sauce company. It was 4 brothers and 1 sister or something, and then we woke up one day and 2 of the brothers and the sister had taken over the company, and now their sauces suck, and now we went on a 4-year journey to make it even better version than we made the first time.
Yeah. Well, when you create this kind of family transfer, in order not to have that poisonous relationships, you really have to figure out who handles operation, who gets the leadership, and who gets paid. Just like we talked about, those 3 layers. You have to figure out what is going to work and who in your family or who you're passing it down to is going to be best suited for those roles. And you have to really not worry about what's fair and equal, but what will actually work and benefit everybody.
I think it's really tough. I think that's one of the toughest things is first you have to find family members that are even interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of times small businesses
and well suited for it.
Yeah. We get into it for the love of the game a lot of the time. We're not thinking about exit strategies when we get in. We're not thinking about, will I become really independently wealthy from this? And so by the time we get around to thinking about selling it, or what the transition is going to look like, if you haven't cultivated somebody in your family, that really wants to do that, then you just don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And very often when people, don't care as much as you, they just let it go to hell.
Yeah. Well, the next way to kind of transfer the company, and you've wanted to do this a few times, is that employee stock ownership plan where it's very complex to get set up and it's way harder than you think about, but you can give your employees ownership into the company. And that is how you can kind of transition. The founder kind of comes out, operations continue with the employees who are also all owners. The only way to really get that done is to get professionals in there, make sure that they can set it all up for you. It is a good decision if you want to keep the company going and there's no clear successor, but you sometimes have to hire outside to bring people in to take over some of the roles. So anyway, very difficult, but you can look into that. The last one is the winding down, which is what most small businesses end up doing, whether they want to or not. They just end up closing naturally, either because there's nobody left to run it or the business goes bankrupt or they just can't handle it anymore. But winding down is sometimes the best choice. Just shut her down and move on.
Yeah. Well, I've been through that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about what that means either.
Yeah.
They're stuck with a lot of stuff and they don't know how to really get rid of it. And then you end up selling stuff that you paid a lot of money for fire sale prices.
Yeah. Well, without a really good plan, your business is at risk. So you want to make sure that you have a really solid plan for the exit and for your succession. So a few kind of funny stories out there. And I don't know if they had a whole Netflix series or TV series like The House of Gucci or something like that. They tried to do a family transition and it was a disaster. It felt the family was fighting over control and direction. There were terrible leadership handoffs. And eventually outside management was forced to kind of come in and save the brand just to save the family from themselves. And so that's one of those things where the whoever was owning the company, the patriarch or whatever, he was trying to make it fair and equitable among his kids, give them all somewhat equal control, and they were not well suited to that kind of leadership structure. And so that's where you need to take away fair and equal and just really do what works for family transitions.
Yeah, and that truly is one of the hardest things. I think about it a lot actually because I'm kind of 57 now, 58 now, and I think, well, how much more time am I really going to have left to be doing this? And
you think your daughters are going to step in? And
no, I don't know. Maybe Katrina might want to, but Jesse definitely doesn't want to.
Yeah.
And I just think about it. I think about who could take it over, who could want it. You know, I have a competitor, rest in peace. His name was Jack Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you know, one of the nicest guys around. Me and him had a little spat over case making, you know, a couple times, but really we were friends and we remained friends. And he ended up selling his company, or what, you know, insofar as it could be called a company, it was just him really, but he ended up selling his name and everything and teaching another person how to do the cases.
Mm-hmm.
That person to this date, so Jack was bragged about, you know, hey, I brought this guy down, taught him what to do, everything. Then they made a big post, you know, I'm so glad that I was able to learn from Jack. That was like 5, 6, 7 years ago or something now. I don't know how long now, but to this date, the guy I don't believe has made a case.
Not one.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he has, but I don't hear anything about it. It's certainly not to the level of justice. And it's kind of sad if you think about it, because
poor exit plan.
Because he took on somebody, taught him what to do. That person should be carrying on that legacy.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't want to do it, he should pass it on to someone else.
Yeah. Well, a couple more bad examples were Yahoo and Sears. Yahoo just was transitioning leaderships left and right, no continuity, disaster. We talked about it before the podcast. I don't even know how they're still in business.
That's what I said. I every time I see something from Yahoo, the only thing I ever see these days is like a story on Facebook that ties to Yahoo News.
Right.
Otherwise, I don't know what they do.
Right. And then Sears had one of the biggest downfalls. You know, they should have been the next Amazon, but
Sears should have crushed, and they actually had the opportunity to be Amazon and crush Amazon.
But their leadership, unfortunately, was focused on, you know, engineering and product and stuff like that, and not paying attention to the big picture of what was going on. And so without that kind of clear picture about and who was taking over the actual day-to-day operations, they had a massive brand decline and eventually bankruptcy. So, but one of the fun stories and a good one, and again, there's another TV show all about the Lakers right now on HBO. That was a successful transition. So Jerry Buss, he set up a trust for ownership. He clearly outlined leadership. He clearly outlined the governance and the operations. Jeannie Buss, his daughter, took over became the controlling decision maker, while all the other siblings, you know, held smaller roles and ownership interests. And so that became less about, you know, what was fair, but what would really work. Mm-hmm. And so that was a good one, a good example of a successful transition. So when you're really looking at your business, you need to figure out how you can successfully transition and not have a disaster like we talked about.
Yeah, no, I've had plenty of disasters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to run through this real quick. There is a lot of information on our website on turtlesmith.com. We talk about the exit strategies and succession planning and how you can prepare for that. But just to kind of quickly run through a little to-do list on how you can handle this. The first thing to do when you're thinking about you want to get out of your business is to define success. So what type of transition are you looking for? If it is a family member or a key employee, are they willing and able? And can you groom them to take over? If you're looking to sell, what kind of sell price is going to work for you? If you can sell it for that much, are you going to have enough to retire on? Do you need some post-exit income? Like, do you need to retain a part of the company? Do you need to still get a salary for consulting or stuff? So that's always the first thing. Define the success of what your exit would look like. The next one is you want to pick a target timeline. So 2 to 5 years would be minimum for most businesses to plan for an exit. You can't just wake up one Tuesday morning and decide I'm going to retire and hope that everything works out. You've got to really plan ahead, make a plan and set it into motion.
Who would you tap for that? Like say if it were me, you would be my first thought about, like, if I did wake up on Tuesday and say I want to retire, I think I'd talk to Lulu first, obviously, but I think that we both would feel like that you would be the one that we would want to get advice from on that.
An accountant would really help you. You probably have to get a lawyer involved, but you actually have to take the first step. You have to define what that means. Like, what is a successful exit, and what does it mean that you want to retire? Does it mean that you want to go, sit at your house and watch TV and do Facebook all day and nothing else? Do you want to be still consulting in the business? Do you want to sell this company and then use those funds to do a side project? What is your goal for retiring, or what is your goal for your exit?
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense,
Mhm.
you know, so.
The next part is you got to have clean financials. That's what we talked about. Whether a business is going to sell or transition, got to have separate business and personal. Take out those owner perks so profit is real. A lot of small businesses, they run their personal expenses through their business, which you shouldn't do, but they do, and they get some perks. So what does it mean to take those away? Bookkeeping should be consistent and honestly very boring. Hire an accountant, make sure it's just clean books, and then make sure you're building monthly reporting. That's the most important thing for a potential buyer to see is a timeline of your financials. You're never going to get a purchase price based on 1 year or 1 month of financials. They want to see 3 to 5 years minimum of good financials.
Unless you're
and
like
growth.
me and you wake up on a Tuesday and buy a pool room.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one.
And when you ask them what they do, you get like a handwritten page of what their revenue was.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun going through that. The next step is removing those bottlenecks we talked about earlier. Make sure that you have key position people in your company that can make these sales, pricing, hiring, vendor relationships, customer relationships. Make sure that people know the technical know-how of how you run a business. Most small business owners, myself included, everything's just in their head. It's not on paper. It's not, somebody can't jump in and do it.
You know what? And we've talked about that in season 1 as well.
Mm-hmm.
About standard operating procedures,
Yep.
not gatekeeping information,
Yep.
things like that. And as a business owner, right, there are so many things that are in my head, and I have a hard time getting them out to people, right? Like it's a big information dump.
Mm-hmm.
But so often I will walk into the office and one of the customer service reps will be on the phone with someone, and I'll just kind of overhear one side of the conversation.
Right.
And a customer will be saying, well, can you do this or can you do that? And the customer service rep won't know, because they won't know that, yes, we can, not only can we do it, but she won't know how to say we can do it, or how, or even how we would do it.
Right.
So if I wasn't there, the answer is pretty much like either I don't know or just no.
Yeah.
But me standing there, I'll often jump in and I'll say, hey, we did that like 3 years ago on this case, and we did a version of that, and we could do this. And at that moment, it helps the customer service rep, it helps the customer. But if that's not that tidbit of information is not somewhere that they can reach all the time,
Mm-hmm.
then it only helps in that one pinpoint in time and doesn't help everyone.
Right.
And owners sometimes don't realize the vast amount of information they have in their head from all those years of vendor relations and construction, problem solving, and everything else. And I don't even know what the right answer would be on how to do that. Maybe
little at a time.
Daily diary,
yeah,
I guess.
Not just information dump. Just a little bit at a time. You just transition it slowly. You can't do it quickly. And the way you kind of identify whether you're being successful is that 2-week test. Take some time off, take a few days, take a few weeks, take a month or two eventually, and really see that your business can operate without you, and you'll know that you're successfully removing those bottlenecks. The boring part of this kind of plan, again, we talk about this a lot on turtlesmith.com in the guide, is document everything, get that standard operating procedure, have a playbook for how to handle customers, vendors, and lenders, and document everything so that a new person could just step in and run your business.
That would be great. That's that's kind of the way that the 2-second lean, the Toyota production system goes. Yep. Is to have those SOPs. You know what I'm finding out though in Chester's? We hired Floyd to be the general manager. Floyd is creating a lot of SOPs. Basically everything's in the book.
Yeah.
But nobody goes to the book.
Right.
Not even me. I've had to train myself now, because Floyd will tell me, I'll say to Floyd, how do I do this or that? And he'll say, dude, it's in the book.
Yeah.
And I'll go to the book, and sure enough, it's right there. It's just straight up, step by step, and he's doing a great job of it.
Yep. And
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I myself have never really worked in a job or a place, where everything was in a book, like the companies that I've had, because it's all been gatekeeped in my head.
Well, that's because you are a entrepreneur and a maker. You are a creative type, And to be honest, creative types, they kind of suck at that stuff. They suck at putting the stuff in the book and having procedures because they just have it all in their head. Why are they going to waste time putting it on paper for somebody else, you know? But it is an important step to do in this kind of succession planning.
Yeah, like I can see how to do something and step by step, right? But when I tell somebody else and then I ask them to make up a procedure on that, you know, it's like sometimes it doesn't happen.
Right.
But when it does happen, when they do a good job and they do it, like I'll tell Floyd how to do it. He puts it in there, everything's great, and then I don't even go use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, this is exactly what it should be, is you get your SOPs in place, you get your systems in place, you're constantly tweaking them. And when you are ready to sell your business, anyone who comes in to see it can step right in and see that it just will run smoothly without you.
Yep. Yep. And that's where, too, the next step is you need to build a good leadership structure. So make sure you have that ops, sales, finance, all those leads in place. You got Floyd now working for you. He's taken over a lot of that management. Right after that, we have risk reduction, which is a big one that a lot of people don't do when they're looking to sell their business. If one client is 40% of your revenue, you are not selling a business. You are selling a contract. And that is not something that buyers are looking for.
I can attest to that.
You have to strengthen your contracts and retention. You have to look for recurring agreements, longer terms, documented good renewal processes. You have to, if you have kind of a service-based client business, you need to make sure that you're careful. We got sucked in for a long time. You know, a lot of our clients were cannabis, and then the cannabis space started really taking a hit. And so we've been dwindling down our percentage of revenue of cannabis clients by attracting newer businesses. And so you got to kind of reduce the risk for a purchase and then reduce that key risk or key person risk. So make sure that you have cross training, documented everything, and more employees visible to clients. That's where you build that your company has a good reputation rather than you as the owner.
That's correct. Yep. That's right.
And the last kind of little step is formalize that ownership and continuity. That goes back to the defining success. Make sure that you are setting up the succession plan, who's going to be taking over what spots, who's going to be taking over ownership. And then some of the basics to cover is like who has access to bank accounts, who can sign checks, who's the named insured on your insured policy, are all of your documents and ownership and everything where they need to be so that they can be handed off. And then one more little thing to do right at the end is just kind of rehearse and communicate that transition, you know. Like I said, take that extra 2 weeks off. Try to make your business operate without you so that it really becomes a turnkey operation, so that anybody can step into that role and just be, you know, if you're handing it off to a son or a daughter or a family member, they can step in and not have to take over everything that you're doing, just be more creative and leading the ship out of the operations.
You know, we've kind of talked about this before, about there are people out there who actively hunt for businesses to buy.
Yep.
Where they are looking for owners who have been doing a decent business. They don't have an exit strategy of their own, these owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they do want to get out. And a lot of times people just can step in and take over those businesses
Sometimes
with a buyout, with a payout plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that the owners haven't really thought about it and don't have their own exit plan set up,
right?
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you get a lesser price when you're in that situation. And oftentimes if you're on a buyout strategy, it sometimes doesn't work. You're selling, but you end up still working just as much as you did before because you're trying to make sure that the company continues. So if you don't have a good succession plan, you're really
or
just
worse, you sell
yourself.
it on a buyout plan like that. You know, you trust somebody and then they tank your business, and now you got to step back in and take it over and
that's
rebuild
one
it.
of the worst. That's the worst thing that can happen. Yeah, you're on the beach, retired, thinking your life is good, and all of a sudden your business has failed, and that earnout that you were thinking you were going to get over the next few years is disappeared.
Well, that almost happened when I was trying to sell Chester's. You know, the guy wanted to buy it with a payment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that, you know, if they paid a deposit.
And I said no.
And you said no. And then we had a meeting with the guy's partner who's a lawyer. And then the lawyer was, you know, being a dick.
Didn't that guy like threatened you? He's like, I'm a lawyer and I have lawyer friends.
Literally, yeah. And I told him, and I said, well, you know what? I've decided that if you guys want to buy this business, it's going to be all cash up front.
Yep.
You know, and they were like, why? And I was like, because if you're going to be this way with me before we even sign anything, right? then how's it going to be 10 months from now when you decide you're not going to pay? You know?
Yep.
So I said, no. I said, I don't see it. You're not going to take care of my business. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to go with that.
Well, so my in task to all small business owners, our kind of task for the week is plan a vacation. Plan a 2-week vacation for yourself. A lot of small business owners, they've probably worked for 6 or 7 years without even a day off. Take a break. Find a time where you can take a vacation. Find a lull in your season where you can take a little time off and see what all is in place. See what breaks, what slumps, what doesn't work in that 2-week period that you're gone. Come back and fix it.
And if I can advise you, if you actually do that, because I'll tell you how that is hard.
It's very hard.
It's very difficult to let your baby go even for 2 weeks, but you have to do a couple things here. You have to realize that whatever does break can be repaired. You know, what doesn't work right can be repaired. You're not going to lose customers. You know, you're not going to lose. Everything's not just going to disappear, but there will be problems.
Right.
And don't stress about it. Just use that. This is the whole point of this exercise is so that you learn the parts of your business that you need to bolster and get those procedures in place. So that, I mean, you always have to imagine, and I need to do all this too, by the way, and so does Lulu and everything. We're just, kind of hoping things don't go bad.
It's hard.
But the better way to imagine this would be not that you can take a 2-week vacation and the business is okay. It's what would happen if something serious happened, right? You got into an accident, you're in a coma, you're in a, you're in traction or whatever. If you've got a roofing business, I had a friend who had a bricklaying business, right? And he often bragged to me. He goes, "I'm the best bricklayer in my business." Right? And he'd say, I can build a wall or whatever they call it when you're doing the bricklaying.
I'm with you.
I can lay brick faster than anybody in my business. And I told him, I said, well, so what happens when you're not there? And he says, well, it doesn't get done as quickly. The walls are not as straight and everything. And I said, so you've basically got a crew of people that will ruin your business if you're not there.
Yep.
Because you just told me that customers will complain.
Yeah, and a lot of people do not think about that.
Yeah.
A lot of small business owners, they do not think, they're very proud of their work, but their employees are not trained enough or good enough to do what they do.
Now, in my shop, I will spend time teaching people how to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And I've had, a few times I've had people leave and go start their own business, making cases and something,
That is a risk.
It's a risk, but I'm not mad about that.
Yeah, I don't get mad about it either.
Because here's the thing with that, right? And this is what I tell everybody as far as case making goes. Building cases is easy. Now it's not easy, but what I mean is that it's not rocket science, to use a cliche.
Right.
It's leather and rivets and sewing and all this. I mean, these are all things that just about anybody can learn to do if they're patient and they want to learn how to do it, right? So even if I didn't teach somebody how to do it, they could learn how to do it, But if I teach them how to do it and they go off on their own, then at least I know that they've been taught properly.
Yeah.
And then if they don't do a good job, then that's just them, being lazy or not being as diligent, right?
Right.
But what I also know is this, and this is where the making cases is easy, right? Making a product, making cases is easy. Selling them is hard.
Right. Yep.
Right? Because now you're jumping into a sea of competition where there's 30 brands, there's 10 people that are making custom stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I know that if they're not going to put together the same sort of team that I've put together over these years, they're not going to have the same relationships, they're not going to know how to manage their time because they were focused on one aspect of the business, which is making the product.
Right.
And they didn't have to spend their time thinking about the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it's fine with me if they go off, And if they outcompete me, well, then I guess it's my time to end my business.
Well, I think that's a good note to kind of end it on. Turtlesmith.com. You can check out a lot more information on this. We have that whole guide, which talks about exit planning and planning for your exit strategy. Any final thoughts for this week?
No, I think that this was a fine way to let people know that, most people don't want to think about what it is when they're finally going to be done with a business or when they want to be done.
Right.
So I think this is a good one for people to start thinking about.
All right.
And I like the idea of the 2-week trial. I'm gonna run that by Lulu.
Yeah.
We were actually just talking about that last night. I know you want to wind down, but I said to her, now you got to be here every night with the new dance studio.
Yeah.
Now it's like we have no time for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to take some time for yourself. What's the point of being in business for yourself if you can't take a couple week vacation and enjoy life?
Yeah, well, hopefully she'll get that sorted out.
Well, if you made it this far, definitely like and subscribe. Turtlesmith.com, a lot more information at TurtlesmithOK at all of our socials. And we'll see you next week.
All right, you guys take care.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com.